build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Well, they gave me bars, but I can see between to a dusty yard and a long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I dry my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone. I'm sober.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers. This is episode 146. I'm Matty. I'm joined by Colin and John. John, how you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm all right. I've had a really good day. It was me and the bairn and the dog, and we've been out for two big walks. One smaller walk where I had the bairn and the baby Bjorn kind of strapped to my chest. We went out shopping and that, so it was probably the perfect antidote to get over yesterday.
Have you ever been tempted to put the dog and the baby thing on your chest?
I am now.
Good. We were coming back from Edinburgh earlier on because we were at my mother-in-law's, and we saw a woman walking her dog up a wall, like a high wall, like you would with a bairn. And then obviously I got to a point where the dog couldn't get down itself, so she had to carry it down. And I was like, oh, aye. That looked like the dog was having its best time. How are you doing, Colin?
I'm all right, aye. Voice is sort of nearly back to where it was on Friday. But I'm all right. It's funny doing this on a Sunday. But.
Aye, it is. So, and we're doing it Sunday because if you are a subscriber to Longbangers, then you'll be getting this episode Sunday night as opposed to the Monday night where it goes out to everybody else. So
all the plebs. Joking. I'm joking.
So that's your wee benefit. Get it 24 hours early. So we had to shuffle some episodes around. So we'll do Heatbangers on a Monday night now instead of Longbangers. So let's get to it. We're obviously going to cover the game at Hampden on Saturday. Another defeat, slightly different way of losing, I suppose, this time. John, what were your sort of overall views on the game?
I think
it didn't expect that question.
I know we get asked every week.
We talked about this.
What game?
Well, I suppose high-level thoughts. I was at the game, which was different compared to the week before, and I was sober, so I remember as much of the game as I do any other. I like you say, it was different performance, same result.
That was probably a wee bit more high level than I was expecting.
We'll
come back to you. I'll go to Colin. How about you, Colin? What were your thoughts?
Disappointed. I can't remember what I was saying here last week, but I did kind of fancy it. I just thought they'd be a bit overconfident in that, and didn't think there was any chance that we could be as bad as we were another 2 weeks in a row. Which kind of was proved right. And then when I saw the team, I thought, fuck, well, that's kind of what I would have done. I know I was like, folk were laughing in the group chat and that when I said I would stock it with defenders and midfielders, but I was quite happy with the team when I saw it, including the James Scott thing that obviously riled a few folk. But then fucking two wonder strikes and bit of shitty defending, two wonder strikes, and then we just can't take our chances or create enough chances after that.
I suppose to give you a wee bit more of a teaser and just to demonstrate that I actually listened to Quick Bang as well, which I haven't done recently. Jamie probably called it right, Jamie Montgomery, when he said that we were our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Like as much as Colin's saying that it was two wonder strikes, and they were. I think they come from Hibs getting caught out in possession and no closing down a free kick.
Aye, it was. The first one's terrible, isn't it? With that's McGinn that got caught on his bad foot. Like the ball comes drilled back at McFadden and he touches it right into the path of the Mackay who picks the first time pass, and because the centre halves are separated, he's just wide open. But then he smacks a fucking peach. I mean, it's like one of them that could have been one that you're catching up in Rosette, like on another day. But he just caught it as flush as he could. And then the free kick, it was like I couldn't even remember it was a free kick. Like until I watched the back earlier on, they just rolled it in, and they showed it on the TV. I think McFadden and that were talking about it, saying James Scott jumped because they were expecting the shot, And then because he's waiting to land before he can run again, that's gave the boy that sort of extra yard inside. But even that, it goes about fucking 3 yards outside the goal and bends into the top corner. It's just like million attempts at that, and you're lucky if you're getting 999. You're lucky if you're getting fucking one in, rather than counting the other way. Yeah.
Aye.
Fucking hell.
I like just the confusion that a million minus one caused there.
There's too many numbers.
It was. At 2-0, it looked, say this on Quick Bang as well, it looked like it was going to be another one of those fucking horror shows, didn't it? Like, Hearts obviously thought that they were going to go and pick up 4 or 5, but we got the goal straight back. John, what did you think of the goal that we scored?
It was. I don't know if we call what it said beforehand, before we started recording, but at Hampden, it seems like you're a million miles away from the action, even when you're as close to the pitch as you can possibly be. So it looked like, for where I was, like in David Gray corner, it was, I don't know, did it come for a corner, bit of goal mouth scramble and got stabbed home? That's as much as I can say.
I can't remember even came for like their goal. We took it for centre, and we went up, and they just played like Henderson just took a wee run and just dinked it up the line, and
okay.
It was the defender's ball all day, but Stevenson just
muscled him
and took a wee step to the left and then cut it back. Cadden had a shot, got blocked, and then it come back to his other foot and he put it in the corner. So it was because if you listen to it, I seen the wee clip this morning on Twitter. It was the Premier Sports one. So I've just watched the BBC fast forward through the BBC game the other now just for this, but Stephen Craigan has just finished saying something like there's no way back for Hibs, they've not got it in them to come back, as Cadden's fucking striking the goal. And he did say, like, well, that's kind of proved me wrong, because you've seen the reaction, Cadden and that Maloney, they all believed at the time. You see Cadden's reaction to the goal and the way he celebrated in that, and that's not anything we'll come on to obviously, but the players can't be criticised for no having the heart yesterday and not having the effort and putting a shift in, because they all did.
It was interesting to see that, like, we talked about the lack of fight, the lack of heart, the week before at Tynecastle. Yesterday, I mean, you were players. I mean, they were definitely getting stuck in. I mean, they were leaving the boot in loads. Obviously, we kind of went down to 10 men because a full. But the amount of times you saw the players going to the support and getting their arms up, like, fucking come on, and try to rally. But not just the fans; they were doing it to each other as well. They were like on at each other the whole time. And I suppose if you were to take a positive, not as many positives when you lose to Hearts in a cup semi-final, but if you were to take any positives, then definitely there were signs of a team that was fighting for the fans and for each other.
It's funny because there's a train of thought out there, and you've probably seen it yourself, that there can be no positives. Like even entertaining the idea of taking any sort of positives out of the game, then you should be strung up and left for the buzzards.
But it's funny. Mediocrity.
I read something like that saying it's a loser's mentality to take positives, but what I think the people that say that don't understand is that the best champions suffer a defeat or a loss at some point in their career, and what they learn for that is what drives them on to be a winner. So it's not a loser's mentality. That's just pish that somebody doesn't understand what they're saying says.
Yep. It's a hard one though, because you sort of there's almost that point where it happens that often. You think, fucking hell, maybe it is like a loser's mentality. Maybe it is like that the hard luck stories and all. You get sick at some. I think Jamie said earlier on, we're like the Scottish national team of club football. It's like that kind of nearly runs or a time. Like we just never quite did enough to.
Always a bridesmaid. Yeah.
Aye.
I suppose if you flip that on its head, though, you've got the Scottish team who has had a number of years poor results and no qualifying for competitions, and then they've qualified for the Euros, and then they're on the brink, maybe qualifying for the World Cup. Got a couple of games.
Yeah. I mean, we could do it, and that's sport. Well, it's like you say, Colin. It's like you learn for defeats. Like that's the thing is you kind of move on for them, and they happen in sport. It's not like it's fucking one-way traffic. Every team wins every game. Like it's impossible to happen. Somebody has to win. Somebody has to lose. Just we definitely need to find a way of fucking beating them. more than Maduro.
Yep.
What about the support yesterday? So there's a bit of criticism for the number of people that we took through, but what would you say about the folk who were there, got right behind the team?
Yeah, no doubt. It was almost like it was like, fuck them with their couple of thousand more. All that shite about them getting all their tickets in the South Upper. It's just a big fucking empty bit. But so I had a few thousand more, obviously, but you wouldn't have known, eh? I mean, you better having your folk there that aren't the day trippers, obviously, because they sat on their hands. As soon as that goal went in, they thought, fuck. Right, and they went quiet, as did their team for 50 odd minutes. If they had a game when I watched it earlier, 50 odd minutes is when they started the time wasting. So they knew who was on top, and they knew their fans knew, and that's why they sat on their hands. But so a few thousand less, but fucking so what, eh? It's the result that matters.
It is, yeah. Well, I tweeted the Hearts display as well. I don't know if she's clocked that. Heats. Heats. Well done, Heats.
It actually looked better in your photo than it did at the match.
Aye.
Came out better.
Aye. It's, I did the movie favour and touched it up a bit. So, I suppose we'll come on to the talking points in a wee minute. We've got to look at... you mentioned they're calling the sort of the dark arts. George, you described it on after the game on Saturday. And a bit of gamesmanship for Hearts and that. What did you think of their antics through the second half?
It's a good question. I suppose it culminated with Craig Gordon at the end. But prior to that, I don't remember anything in the first half, but certainly in the second half, I think his Hibs got much more physical. And I might be misremembering that. But I got the impression that in the second half, Hibs were much more physical. And it was probably typified by Lewis Stevenson crashing into someone winning a challenge they had no right in winning. But I think given the physicality that Hibs are putting in, and the fact that we had at least one player on a yellow card, I think they were just trying to get someone sent off, because as Colin described, I think Hearts knew, and I think Hearts fans knew, that Hibs were definitely looking the more likely to score or to get the game on level terms. So they were just doing whatever they could to try and break up. And I thought as well, like, from the moment that Cadden had scored, I don't remember much in the way of noise coming for the Hearts end up until maybe, like, I want to say about the 85th minute or something, when they started fucking twirling their scarves to get rid of the smell.
That's a pathetic thing, the fucking twirly, fucking useless bastards out there. And call a word on the referee. So we were talking about it before we came on, and sort of comparing the referee in the Old Firm game today, or the Glasgow Derby, if they didn't want to upset anybody, compared to John Beaton's performance yesterday. Do you think we might have kept all our players on the pitch had we had Madden referee in the game the way that he refereed the Rangers game today?
If he refereed it in that way, but we wouldn't have, because he wouldn't have refereed it in that way, because they only referee the Rangers Celtic games in that way. Because Rangers could have 2-3 red cards a day with just what is persistent fouling. Like, it was just constant. Mm-hmm. So I know, I think it would have been refereed in the same way, because it's not a Rangers Celtic game, because it's the same in the league, isn't it? They get the referee, he never got credit the day he was getting slated on the TV, but they get credit for not sending somebody off or booking somebody too early in an Old Firm game, which then says to the players, do what I fucking want. It was Dave in the group chat, didn't he? He says that there's no way, he's not got, Madden's not got to send him off today. I can't remember who it was. Aribo did 2 fouls in a minute that were both bookable, and then he done another one. It was worse. And he's never booked him again, and you go, what the fuck's going on here? So what are you saying to the players there as a referee? Just do what you fucking want. Whereas yesterday, we weren't getting away with it. I mean, a few Hearts boys avoided a booking. Campbell probably avoided a red card as well. I haven't said that, but it's we're never going to get referees. It's amazing that they're the two that moan about the referees the most, though.
Aye, I know. You talk about so Newell has 2 bookings. I can't remember, the first one seemed like a fair, like, it's one that you could get a booking, but you could also not get a booking for it. It was like one of these innocuous bookings that
I don't know, like,
again, similar challenges.
It was away at the opposite side of the pitch for me, and my immediate reaction was, I don't know why he's getting involved, because I thought that there was two other players around the Hearts player that was running down the line with the ball, and they seemed in a better position to put a foot in. But as I say, it was the other side. So
yeah, Doyle Hayes was coming across, and Newell was chasing him, and Doyle Hayes was coming across, and Newell just kind of threw his and caught the back of his leg, which was similar to tackles in the Old Firm game the day that they went missing
Punished.
a booking. And then Doyle Hayes, I think, caught him and the ball, but Newell got the booking for it because he was the one that clearly was just doing the professional foul. I think they called it the day in the telly, like when they was just trying to clip his heels. Or they kind of chat that Thompson and that were coming out with. He was just trying to clip his heels. And that's what he tried to do, but it's a booking in an unknown Rangers Celtic game. So.
And his second one, so I've only seen, apart from seeing it live, I saw the end of the challenge on a boy's phone who was about 3 or 4 rows in front of us at the time set the game, and I've not watched it back. But from the replay that I saw, I was like, that's harsh that it's a yellow card. When it's the second yellow to send them off, I thought the referee could easily have kept his card in his pocket there and just had a word. But I've only seen it the words. Colin, you watched it back. What did you think? Was it a second yellow?
Yeah, he's through settling. And he's actually not got to win the ball, and they're not in a dangerous position. The boys actually just try to clear it because he's not got it under control. And they were just looking for it, weren't they? So I don't know if it was Haring or not, but he was doing more often than he was up yesterday as well. So, but having said that, you're right. It probably was like one where you would get away with it in other games, or Hearts player might get away with it. But just minutes before that, he had also had a foul against them and warned by the ref. Mind we said it at the time that he sort of banged into the boy and then he tried to flip over his head, but kind of arsed it up. But it was just a minute before it. So he's just been told, fucking watch it, and then he's done that. So the referee's probably got him on. He's on a yellow, he's just done that. What the fuck are you doing? That's probably why. So it's probably 2 half yellows that created the...
Yeah.
I say half yellow, it's probably a yellow card, like, on its own right. He's in the referee's mind, isn't he? Because he's done 2 already.
I was going to say, it probably was a second yellow. Not because it was like a dirty challenge or whatever, just because of the circumstances. But I think in the context of the game at that point, like Hibs were definitely on top. And the only 2 things I've watched back are Newell sending off, and I got, just by chance, I caught Hart's second goal. And I think, like, you'll remember, like, Hibs fans, like, they were definitely up for it yesterday, like, and they were roaring the team on, especially, like, and they were really responding to the fact that Hibs were really, really physical. And watching that replay back, as much as you're saying, I totally appreciate what you're saying about not being able to win the ball. At that point, Newell probably thought that he could win the ball, and Henderson was there to collect it if Newell had managed to get a toe on it and possibly set up another Hibs attack. So, like,
it's one of them.
Shit.
I agree with you. I agree to an extent. I think he's on the... It's on the edge there. Well, that's what Maloney said, but it's on the edge there of, if he doesn't try and win it, he gets criticised for not trying.
Yep.
So, do we want him to try? Do we not want him to try? Last week we were saying they want to try, and this week he did try, but he stepped over the line. So
on Maloney there, so we were talking about on the bus and in the pub after the game, but Maloney got a bit of criticism for some of the guys. His view was that he should have taken Newell off, that the decision should have been taken out of Newell's hands, like knowing that he was on a yellow card and the way that we were, or the way that Maloney was asking him to play. And Maloney kind of said he wasn't upset about the yellow card or the red card because he wanted the team to play on the edge. John, what do you think? Do you think Maloney has to take some responsibility for the red card, or do you think he was right to keep Newell on and trust his players?
It's tricky because everyone's got 20/20 hindsight, eh? And I think at the time, I don't think anyone was saying Newell. I don't remember anyone around me saying that Newell should have been hooked because he'd had like a few challenges beforehand. And I was saying to my mate that in that moment, like I was saying about like the fans really responding to how physical Hibs were, like Hibs like were practically baying for blood. So I can't really, like I say, I can't really blame anyone for what they did or didn't do. Like you win or lose by your decisions. I mean, we've lost, but up until that point, I thought Newell had had a good game and was probably, I want to say that he was definitely a big part of Hibs midfield and a big part in pushing Hibs forward. So I like taking him off. It, like you say, it's one of those things that you can point at. You say that you should have taken him off, but well, it's kind of like shoulda, woulda, coulda.
I've got a few talking points on that as well, but there's folks saying should they have taken him off as soon as he got booked, and you keep got booked in 10 minutes. Whoever makes a sub in 10 minutes because a player gets booked, that doesn't happen. Maybe after that foul I was telling you about, that he's had the warning, then he's on his final warning. That's maybe when you make the move, and then that's when the opposition go, he's fucking subbed him, so as he he was going to get sent off, because we've been there, particularly in derbies.
So I think the circumstances that we've got now are that it seems that Maloney's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. So if he'd taken Mule off after that, the referee had a word with him and we'd gone on to lose, you could, the chat might have been, well, why did they take Mule off?
It's when more defensive, broke Campbell on, or
aye.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I suppose we've got quite a lot of talking points to get through, Colin, so we'll probably as well moving on to them, because I think that'll take up a fair bit of the show. Okay. So,
well, I'll start with the team selection then. There's a couple of sort of subcategories under it. So the first one is Joe Newell, so we're on that topic. So McGlashan, John Docherty, RT, Kev R, TG Willis, Keith Robertson, Scott G, Gogs, Mick C, and Mason Forrest said stuff about Joe Newell, saying he let us down badly, had to get him off before he got sent off. It was patently obvious it was coming. It was a needless tackle, really dented their chances to get back into the tie. Somebody said there, like I said, I'd have taken him off after the yellow, 10 minutes in. Sean Maloney should have taken him off before he got sent off. Joe Newell wasn't having a great game by his standards. Somebody else, should they have been subbed at half time? If so, who would you have brought on? We'll come back to that. And if Joe Newell hadn't been sent off, which was obviously going to happen, he should have been replaced. I think we'd have gone on to win the game. He's a waste of a jersey, hides in possession, doesn't create and doesn't properly break up play. What's his job? And why did he make that tackle? So there's loads on Joe Newell. He seems to be getting a lot of the wrath, which makes a wee change for Josh Campbell, I suppose. But he'll be feeling good about himself. I mean, that's what you were saying there, John. Who would you have brought on? Like, if you'd subbed him at half time, who would you have brought on? And I really think that, like, the 10 minute to suggest he would sub him at 10 minutes is just, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen in real life, is it? In any game.
If he'd taken Joe Newell off rather than Joe Newell getting sent off, would that have disrupted Hibs' momentum, do you think?
Potentially could have done.
Because of a lack of a similar replacement, or like I can't even remember who was on the bench yesterday, but I don't remember anyone sticking out as being like maybe Scott Allen. But I don't think in terms of what Hibs required yesterday, we've talked about it before in terms of like Scott Allen's I don't know that he's got the stamina for that kind of game. And I didn't mean to be harsh. I just haven't seen it. Like, I don't think that Scott Allen's ever been the guy to be running about and snapping at the tackles or whatever. And I think that's what yesterday required. If you're looking to take Joe Newell off, you're looking to put on as a like for like a replacement as possible.
Yeah.
Scott Allen wasn't it. No disrespect to him.
I don't think Newell. Aye, it would have been Campbell. And I don't think Newell was having a bad game. Like, I thought he did what Joe Newell does. Maybe wasn't as effective as he has been before, but he was getting in good positions. I think there's a few times he's picked the ball up sort of in their 18-yarder and maybe a bit wide and tried to kind of make something happen there, but he was getting into tackles.
It's maybe my Joe Newell green tinted specs, but at no point yesterday when we were looking to get that equaliser that I think Joe Newell's a weak link. I didn't think anyone was the weak link and needed to be taken off. I made a suggestion at half time that maybe Jasper could have come on for Henderson, because I thought we maybe needed a wee bit more pace down that side of the pitch. But Henderson went on to have a really good game, so it shows what I know.
Yeah. That was Henderson's best game, perhaps.
100%. Aye, definitely best game in the Hibs jersey, and probably gave us the first time a sign of what we could expect from him.
Yeah.
He needs to hit those levels every week.
Through all the stuff back, I thought, I've said before, I thought he looks weak in that. He didn't yesterday. He was holding guys off, and he was really good yesterday, I thought. So there's a bit of harsh criticism for Joe Newell. So the next one that's obviously getting the finger pointed is Matt Macy. So Junior, Mark McKenzie and Jack. Can we find a goalkeeper who can either pass the ball to his teammates or kick it straight? I'm not sure if we can. I think there's one that exists. Really disappointed with the keeper. Very poor performance. Got to do better with both goals, and distribution is pathetic. Guessing he'll be replaced in the summer. And distribution has been chronic all season. Done well to smother from Boyce, but doesn't inspire confidence.
I've not seen Sims go back, but I think we said at the start that Kingsley's goal practically hit Mount Florida before it came back and went in the top corner of the net. Like I don't think anyone's saving that.
Nah, Matt Macy's what, 7 foot tall, and he couldn't reach that. So no way.
I don't blame him for the goals, but the distribution bit, I would 100% agree that it was really poor. I mean, especially like in injury time, where we needn't kind of get the ball at the park and needing to keep the ball. And
was there 2 or 3 that he's pumped to the side?
I mean, but they want to like, I'm going to shell it up the pitch. It was passes. He was looking for a man, and it wasn't like he was passing under pressure or anything like that. There was one of them he just fucking made straight out the park, and that it's almost on that. I use the word unforgivable. I mean, it didn't mean it is literally unforgivable. Right? I mean, obviously you have to forgive these things and fucking.
Well, someone.
Well, folk make mistakes. Like, it's human being and all the rest of it, right? So not in the literal sense, but it's almost that. But you go, fucking hell! Like it's like a cardinal sin at that stage of a game of that importance to just needlessly fuck up like that on something that's basic. And you can understand it. See if we had 2 men, like if the pass back to him was shit and he's taken a bobble and he's kicked it wrong, or if he's got 2 players sliding in on him and he's had to play it quickly. Neither of them has got the time. The player that's receiving the ball has got time to receive it without any pressure on them. Yep. And he puts it out for their throwing.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the style of play we want to play, he's not going to be suited to, but then neither's our defence, because that's why we lost the first goal yesterday. Not because the goalie didn't save it, because our defence couldn't control and pass a ball. And that's why they got even the fucking cameras didn't even catch the start of the first goal because they were like, well, Hibs had just got a free kick for offside. Next thing the boys fucking running through 1-on-1 to go, because your defenders can't pass and control the ball. So it's not just the goalie that's not got that. However, I've said before, like Man City goalie yesterday, you see that? Every goalie in Scotland, the Rangers boy punted it at the park the day, every goalie in Scotland kicks it out the park. Joe Hart's the only one I've not seen do it, I think, but he got punted for Man City for being shite with the ball at his feet. So
Joe Hart did East Roadbind played it out for a corner when we put a bit of pressure on them, and we got a corner out of them trying to pass it at the back. So you get it, it does happen, and keepers are
whoever we get to replace, if that's what we're going to be doing, we're going to be having there's got to be another thing next year. Oh man, his distribution. So the only way you get away with it is if you make saves like Craig Gordon does, because his distribution's pish and all. Yeah. But he gets away with it because he'll pull out the save like he did to Porteous.
Aye.
And nobody talks about it for that reason. Because it sounds fucking ridiculous.
Macy didn't really have a lot else to do across the night. He managed to pick the ball at the net twice, and I think he had one save for Boyce in the second half.
Aye. I think that's what the one Boyce saying there, smothered it. I can't remember it really.
Aye.
But I thought he done all right when Boyce put the one. Boyce should have scored probably just before half time, but Macy came out and narrowed the angles, and 6'11" or whatever, so he came out and covered the space. 6'16". I can't remember his height, but
6'16".
Something like that.
Is that part imperial, part metric?
No, 6'16". Higher than that.
I agree, but we could maybe do with a different keeper. I think he makes saves. The Dabrowski makes saves, but whether we can get one that's like a good footballer as well, that remains to be seen.
Okay, right, move on from that, Macy.
So then the rest it's just stuff about the team. So Neil Whelan said attacking options were sitting on the bench and made no impact. EH6 HFC, we tried to or I think it's Maloney's getting it, tried to change too much in a short period of time. Daniel says James Scott was quality yesterday. And then there's a couple of points about from Lee. One from Lee, sorry. 2 really sloppy goals. Didn't make Craig Gordon work at all in the second half. Criminal making attacking subs in 90 minutes. Although McGlashan pointed out that he made saves for Porteous, Henderson and Jasper in the second half. And Cammy saying still fannying about with the ball outside their box, and as soon as Hearts applied pressure, we were nearly caught out every time, which is kind of the point I was making about not just the keeper that's got poor distribution. Do you think he tried to change too much a short period of time, Maloney? And do you think the subs came on too late?
I thought the conversation we had as we were walking up to the stadium, right? So I was talking to Josh, and you've got McGinn's come in out of the cold, right? So he's been injured for it seemed like fucking ages. 3 months, right? So he's come in for his first start, and apart from the mistake for the goal, played all right. Obviously, Bashiri's come out. Stevenson's then in as a hold midfielder, and Stevenson was immense, like a proper.
He was a box to box midfielder yesterday.
Aye, he was outstanding. And then James Scott, and the expression I used with Josh was it's like a last throw of the dice type team selection. It was almost like fucking what else can we do to try and make a difference. Now, I didn't really listen to any of the pre-match stuff because I was that fucked off for last week. I was like, I'm not interested in what they've got to say. I'll watch what happens on the pitch and then decide if I'm all right with it after being in the huff for them all week. So there could have been injuries or other things to impact it. But James Scott is probably the most obvious one to call out because James Scott has been, with the best will in the world, shite since he came to Hibs. Like he's not had a good game yet. As with Henderson, yesterday was the best game that he's had at Hibs yesterday. I still don't think he was terrific. He was all right, didn't he? He put himself about, but I didn't think he really kind of gave us that much. However, I wouldn't criticise him. I thought he was all right. But I can understand why he would have got picked ahead of Melkerson, who's the only other option, because the week before, Melkerson was completely anonymous because he was like a wee laddie playing against grown-ups. So James Scott held his own up front. Like he didn't get bullied, he didn't get just folk pushing him out the way.
I actually thought he'd done all right.
Aye,
I was laying off and winning headers.
He was all right, but I think he was I think it's like a 7 out of, a 9 out of 15. Right.
I think one of the things that James Scott's maybe suffered from is that, like, when he came in, I think, did he start against Dundee and the other shot? I think I mentioned it on a couple of podcasts, and it's never really worked for him, but I think he found himself in a situation kind of like, do you remember when Sam Morrow was playing for Hibs? He only ever seemed to get like the last 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe if he was lucky. And it's usually when Hibs were getting beat. So it was kind of like, well, we're chucking you on. Let's see what you can do, and if nothing happens, then no harm, no foul. Aye.
Yes,
and I think maybe that's what James Scott suffered from a wee bit. But yesterday, like,
you know what he suffered from, John? Sorry to butt in. I think he suffered mostly because Jack Ross called him out for being unfit. And I mean, we've never seen that, like, he looks unfit. We've just seen that he's not been that good when he's came on the park. But Jack Ross never gave him a fucking sniff of the team for months because he says he wasn't fit enough, which seems incredible. Like, but I don't know how much I believe it.
Well, it's an interesting point, that right? Because Jack Ross, I think, always came across as somebody who was like a player's manager. Like the players all seemed to like him, and like, he generally didn't really kind of come out and criticise players in the press. So it was like a bit of an unusual thing for him to come out and specifically call out James Scott for that reason. And definitely it's impacted him, because I think then people don't see it as there's somebody who's trying but isn't quite working for them. What they do is they go, lazy cunt, he's no tried at all because he's no fit, and it's inexcusable for a professional footballer. And he did kind of throw James Scott under the bus a wee bit, I think, with a big bit with that comment.
But no, I thought he did well yesterday. All things considered, I thought he had a good game.
What would you give him out of 15, John?
Probably a 10.
10. It is.
What's that? Is that 7 out of 10 in real terms?
Aye.
7.5.
There was one really good run that he made. I don't know if you remember. I think it was the one where when Colin described Stevenson as being box to box, Stevenson made that long bursting run and tried to get on the end of a James Scott cross. I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but James Scott sort of run at the channel, received the ball and stuck in, and I was really impressed with that, because that was the kind of thing that we've not really seen.
Yeah,
and I'm guessing that's the kind of thing that he was doing that got him his move to Hull.
Yeah, because he was more a wide player at Motherwell, wasn't he? But what about then the subs, the attacking options, as it was put here, making no impact? Obviously, because they came on too late, was some of the criminal it's called.
I think what that was, somebody suggested they might have made the swapped the substitutions around. They brought Campbell on at that point and brought Melkerson and Jasper on earlier, which I can understand. I think you knew though that it wasn't. They wouldn't brought on with 2 minutes to go, because you can't. Hearts had been on the ground for minimum week and a half out of that 90 minutes. I reckon how they managed to do it longer than the time that was there. But
they had to get the game finished for 2 o'clock this afternoon, so they just had to fucking make it
to wrap it up. So that the referee's going to add on it, and you can't. It was like minimum was going to be maybe 6 or 7 minutes. I think it was 8 they put on in the end.
And even then,
even then, I think 8, because of all the fanning about with Gordon as well. You could have extended that beyond it. So you're probably chucking him on for 10 minutes to try and just chuck everything at it. And I didn't really think we created that much more when they were on the pitch than we were doing before it. So I'm not convinced of it. I suppose Jasper had the free kick that he took, and Melkerson had that header that, if he turns his head a wee bit.
I seen it back the telly. I was really critical yesterday at the game. It isn't as easy as it looked, and he's further out than it looks, but he should still, I think, do better than he did. But it's not like as much as I was thinking at the time. At the time, when I wasn't like, that's the end of Matt, but it looked like he was fucking about 2 yards out, and he just had to nod it in at the near post. Whereas when you watch it back, he's much further out on maybe an angle, and the ball's coming a bit. It's totally, what the fuck's that? It's only just there, but you're so far away in that stadium, you just can't get a good sort of perception of it.
I don't have too much a problem with the subs. Maybe 5 minutes earlier if you're putting the attackers on and give them a real go at it. But I think given that everybody knew how long, and Maloney would have been sent to the fourth official as well. What we're looking at here, you would think one of them would have been having a wee word to get an idea of how long was getting added on before making up their mind. And there's also the potential that you're not wanting to have them know that they would be knackered because they're sort of designed to last 90 minutes. But if we'd got a late goal, you're then looking at extra time. So you still want to have the benefit of the fresh legs and all that through extra time.
Yeah. I mean, I think the positive I'm taking from it is that he changed it. He changed the formation. Folk were saying he's rigid, he'll not change it. He's static, he'll only do it his way or the highway. He's not got the players, he's round pegs, square holes, all that. And he did change it. And I don't think anybody really expected it. Heard the rumour actually they were training indoors all week in the barn. So that, because at East Mains you can just turn up, Don't know if you've been down, so you just turn up and you just park. So they've been indoors so that folk can't see maybe how they're lining up and all that. I don't know how true it is, but that's what I heard today. So because he did change it, it was drastic. I was speaking, obviously seeing you and Josh before the game, and Josh was happy with it. But I think it was the right thing to do. I said it at the time. I think it is the right thing to do what he done.
Well, I think the way that the game panned out, right, result accepted, because obviously it's a shit defending for the 2 goals that are really the significant thing there. But the balance of play and the direction of travel in the game, Hibs dominated for large parts of it. I didn't even think it was didn't feel even like it was a 2-0 game when they went 2-0 up, and you're like, fucking, how have we found ourselves 2-0 down?
Because it's their own fault.
Aye. So you kind of do, I do give Maloney some credit for that, and like obviously he came what he was doing, setting the team up, so ultimately it's not got him the result, but I think it was the tactics that didn't get us the result. I think it was mistakes.
Yeah. Beat yourselves.
No.
Aye.
All right. So then off we go on to the effort and performance, then we've got a big section on Lewis Stevenson again on its own. So we've already probably touched on it, but Andrew Brown, Jamie Robertson, Whiskey, Craig and Stan need to take 10 years off his age. Best performance from him for many a year. Why is he not being first pick on a holding role for his whole career? He was superb, fight and effort bang on, and he was our best player by a mile. Surefire, drop from the squad using Sean Maloney's selection strategy. He may as well go on holiday now. So nice to all be positives just to end on a fucking clang or a negative at the end. But I think there's much more we can say about Stevenson, You know, all that stuff's right. Apart from hopefully that he's straight out of the team now.
Aye.
It would be a strange one, I think, for the rest of the season if we were to revert to the formation or system that we played against Hearts and the formation system, previous derby and whatever was happening before that. Like, what we got yesterday was the fight that the fans are looking for. And I think in the last 5 games of the season, we need to go and get results. So I didn't see, it would be, I'd find it really quite strange if Stevenson not necessarily playing in the middle. I wouldn't have any concerns about him playing at middle, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
Ask you a question and just play devil's advocate with it, right? It's not necessarily what I think, right? But we've got 5 games left of the season. If we win on Saturday, I think that pretty much takes us out of danger of being relegated, depending on, I suppose, other results. But say St Johnstone lose on Saturday, we win. They're not going to catch us, I don't think. You're Sean Maloney, right? So you put yourself in his shoes and you think, right, we've got however many games left this season. Do we start looking ahead to next season? And if you're looking ahead to next season and preparing the team, do you give more game time to younger players who maybe haven't been as effective as Stevenson was yesterday, knowing that you could probably chuck Stevenson in when you need him, but he's not going to be the mainstay of your midfield next season?
It's a good question. I suppose I actually thought you were going to ask something different. I thought you were going to ask whether we start trying to play, like, say we get the result like you described, and there's no danger of us being relegated. It's mathematically impossible that we start trying the way that we're going to be trying to play next year.
Yeah,
but I suppose the difficulty with that is
same thinking.
Yeah, I suppose the difficulty with that is that we still have a number of players out injured. Like we might get Dimitri Mitchell back, for example, but I don't know how does Kevin Nisbet figure in that? How does I don't know who? It'd be interesting. Like I wouldn't be against it. Like I do think that that's probably an ideal opportunity to start, like you say, start preparing. It might even be an opportunity for Maloney, for Hibs to come out and say, right, we're gearing up. They talked about when Maloney came in about building that connection between the club, the players and the fans. So I remember Colin saying that that's maybe been a downfall because, we were kind of promised free-flowing, fast, attacking football, blah, 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 and it's just not happened. So maybe now try and get fans on side again by doing what you've described, whether it's through playing youngsters, so I think Josh O'Connor, he's been on the bench, he got a wee bit of game time. I know people are quite keen to see him, especially because we're not scoring goals up front. I'm trying to think who else. The boy Del Ferrier's been on the bench. Runar Hauga. Give them a game. Ronnie Haggis. Give them a game. Like I'd be all up for it.
But it's just interesting. I suppose that's the stage of Stevenson's career. I suppose when you see the performance that he put on Saturday, and that's one that you would hold up if you're the manager. You would be showing the other players coming through. That's how you should play for your team. That's
what I want from you as a minimum.
That's a benchmark.
Absolutely.
And you said if he can do it at 30 odds, Stevenson 33, 34?
Yeah.
33, 32?
I think as well, I think one of the things that's benefited Stevenson is that I don't remember him ever having a serious injury. Like I think there was the one with the calf and the Achilles that kept him out. But then his first game back after a long term injury for him, he played 120 minutes. So I think he's still got it in the legs. And it might even be that you get 70, 75 minutes out of him, like full tilt, and then he gets subbed. But no, like holding up Stevenson, I think, especially yesterday's performance, is the yardstick for everyone else. That's a good idea as well.
The interesting thing for me was how far he was getting forward yesterday. Like as a predominantly defensive player, which he's always been, right? I know he played midfield a couple of times when he was younger, but predominantly always been a more defensive left back, left centre half as it's been, or defensive midfielder. He was the furthest forward midfielder, like almost doing the Kyle McGuinness role, if you want to call it that. And you think, what are the other two doing? Like why are they not thinking, Lewis, fucking stay back, I'll go. Like the young.
Do you know? I think the difference is, and I might get a bit of criticism for this, but I've definitely said it before. I think Stevenson's got a footballing brain, and some other people are footballers. And I didn't mean that to be a bit disparaging, because I don't think there's much of a difference. It is just that case of like someone having the motivation, desire. I'm not entirely sure what I'm trying to say. Just someone saying, right, there's a gap there. I'm going to go fill that gap.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned it on Quick Bang earlier, Matthew, and we spoke about the game yesterday, didn't we? That we talk about all that, talking about what a leader is and what a captain is, and how it's all about pointing and shouting and that. That's no, like, leadership is what Lewis Stevenson showed yesterday. He showed what matters. He shows how much he cares by leading by example, putting a big fucking tackle in, or going and creating the goal when we're 2-0 doing no, we need to get back in it, and big moments and all that. didn't see him fucking pointing, shouting, and blaming somebody else for something. But that's what a lot of folk think a captain is, purely probably because of the Roy Keane thing.
Yeah.
But I know it goes further back than that. But leadership's like you didn't need to be a pointer and a shouter to be a leader, and that's what Lewis Stevenson was yesterday, and is for the team. So do you leave him out the team when we need people like that to bring the young laddies on? That would be my response to your question that you asked.
I mean, it's maybe you put him in beside him and let them learn. Because even stuff like when he was smashing into the 50-50, because it was like a 50-50, it wasn't a 50-50. He was nowhere near favourite to win it. He won the ball, but it was a big crunching tackle. Right. He's straight back up on his fucking feet. There's none of the, because you see, I mean, obviously there was Hearts players going down when somebody was breathing heavily near them. But Stevenson's crunching into that and just like fucking right up and on with it and ready for the next tackle. It was fucking superb. But that's what you want to set an example. Anyway, sorry, John, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, like, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about Stevenson being the ideal mentor for Dougie Tripod, and Stevenson seems to have gotten about 5 years younger and decided, come on, I'm finished at left back, so I'm just going to make centre mid my own.
He's a mentor for anybody who wants to be the mentor for, as far as I can see, because he can take more than one on as a mentor, because he's a proper leader and a proper, like, Hibs through and through. He knows what it means and he knows what matters, and he'll go and fucking do it when it matters. So,
okay. What else was on that topic?
So there's a few things that was the Lewis Stevenson topic, but McGlashan thought it was much improved in terms of attitude and application, but we're lacking quality up top. St Christopher, fair play to Hearts, scoring 2 great goals. On another day, neither hits the net. We're far from complete, but we battled more than Hearts. Proud of them. I think the reaction in the ground backs that up. John R, at least with some fight, was shown. Overall required at the end of the season, which will come on in extra time. Do we give Sean Maloney the time is the biggest question from yesterday. Lamac, not Lemac, but Lamac said, it felt like the Miller era all over again. Wouldn't say we battered them, but we dominated more than they did. Thought the crowd were good. It's annoying they brought more shit into the season. Can I go home now? Ryan Melville, I'd like Sean Maloney to be more passionate. His reaction to Chris Cairns' goal was as passionate as I've seen him, and I think it had a positive effect. Brian Craig, proud watching the endeavour and bravery. Second half, wish we'd started the first 25 like that. The atmosphere was electric. Jake Gapper, where's the fight been in the last 6 games? Chris Bell, let's see if there's the same fight in the last league games. There's still fucking loads. But what do you think of those ones so far? Like that, Maloney's passion, and well, we covered some of them about the goals. We agree with St Christopher there, and I think we all agree we're lacking quality up top. So, what do you think about Sean Maloney's passion?
I suppose the question I'd ask about that is, like, how much do you guys spend looking at Sean Maloney when Hibs are playing? I'll be honest, like, I tend to watch what's in the park, and I didn't mean that to be a dick to Ryan or anyone else that's asked the question. I sometimes wonder whether I should be looking at those things.
Yeah, I think it's like shite. Like I do, I've said it before. It was worse last year when you had the closed doors and you could hear the managers on the TV or the radio just bawling absolute pish. But when the crowds are in, folk will think that's passion.
Run faster, jump higher.
That's what they're shouting. That's what Yogi was shouting. I heard them on the radio clear as you like. But when the crowds are in, folk think that's passion and he's encouraging the team. He's just shouting fucking shit. He'd be better in the stand watching with a better view than stand the pitch side with the view shite.
What I would say, right, and it goes back to, I suppose, the thing of what we were talking about with Stevenson there as well. There are probably times where you want the manager sets the tone. Lennon was quite good for it. I mean, you can Lennon was sometimes took it too far. But you mind, who was it we played? Morton, 0-0, and McGregor, it's right at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And it ends up this big rammy, and Lennon's covered a square goal just about with Jim Duffy, right? But that character, it wasn't the first time Lennon had done that. Lennon would go fucking mental at linesmen or the fourth official or sometimes at the players, and he looked like he was kicking every ball. That team also had that character about it. It was like almost like that it transferred to the team, and they had that bit of fight about them. And to be fair, they had it under Stubbs a bit. Stubbs went about it a different way, but I think there's a time and a place for it. And when you're wanting your team to go and do it, see if you can demonstrate to the team that it's not just them on their own, but you're in it as well, and being passionate and trying to cheer them up. not all the time, because it loses impact if you do it all the time because nobody believes it. But there are definitely times where that sort of thing for a manager, because the players will see it, whether we see it as fans or not. It's really
Aye. So
the
so then
players
that
see it
begs
as
the
well.
question: if they're standing there all the time, just shouting shite all the time, right? They talk about man management. They just
Yep.
everybody gets the same abuse, and they do it all the time. So it's like if you've got kids and you shout at them all the time, they just start fucking ignoring you.
Aye.
So go in the
Time and
stand,
place,
go and
that's
get a
what I'm
bit of
saying.
view, go and have a look and come down. And when they go, fuck, he's on the touchline. What have I done wrong? Or he picks on the people that will actually react to that rather than somebody that's going, oh fuck, here's this cunt again.
Aye.
Because that's what some of them would do. Oh, listen, this fucker. That's what they'll be standing saying.
Aye.
Fuck me.
Well,
Shut the fuck up.
that was when Lennon lost it, really, wasn't it? When he started doing it, it's like he lost the yin and the yang. I think so the story is going. He just started kind of balling them out the whole time, and players were
Too
like,
much
fuck
stick,
it.
no enough carrot.
Aye. So I think time and a place and being able to set the example, and I would probably say, yeah, you'd want to see. I think you'd want to at least know the managers go to him to do it, and as long as he's choosing the right times to do it.
But you kind of touched on it there as well, though. Stubbs' team had it as well. It was the same players, right? But Stubbs didn't go balling and shouting all the time. But it's the players that had it. So the players have got leaders within their group that can go and do what they need to do at the time. They don't need some fucking idiot standing on the touchline just shouting rubbish. They need to be sorting out for themselves. And they had that because you had Bartley and you had Stevenson, McGregor, McGinn, all these boys. They could sort it out themselves. They could see stuff. They could say stuff.
I'm not talking about shouting, like just shouting nonsense at the players, but is that a bit about picking your battles? So do you go and take the talking to for the referee, or do you go and demonstrate when one of their players halves your player and you give it, do the big gesture and you're like, fucking hell, referee, and like that kind of thing, or kind of the big round of applause. Do you know how like in try to G the players up with the gestures, that kind of thing, rather than just the banal heat it, kick it, second ball shite. Winners, second ball, aye, time, aye. Like, or actually, that's not what I'm talking about. It is like that kind of selecting a moment and knowing the right thing to do at the right time. I think that does.
Does that come? Do you think that comes instinctively, or do you think that comes through time? And the reason I'm asking that is, like, I wonder how much exposure Maloney would have got to that when he was working with Belgium, and I wonder if that's something that he maybe doesn't have yet, but could develop.
He worked at Celtic under Martin O'Neill and Gordon Strachan and that.
So Martin O'Neill was quite a good example of it, though. Like Martin O'Neill was animated, but you look at like some of the best managers. There's been Mourinho. Mourinho gets up to some fucking total nonsense on the touchline. Klopp does it. Alex Ferguson used to do it. Like he would get at the big fucking.
But I wonder. So
watch the referee or
so taking those managers. Taking each of those managers, so what was Mourinho like when he was at Porto? Was he running up and down the touchline like screaming histrionics, you name it? Was Ferguson like that when he was like St Mirren, or the only club to have sacked Ferguson? Like, I wonder what these managers were like early doors. I wonder what their experiences were like. So you were talking about Martin O'Neill and I don't know, was it Neil Lennon that Maloney played under? Like, to take Collins' point, I wonder Gordon Strachan to take Collins' point, like Maloney was probably at some point during his career went, listen to fucking nick of that cunt, like screaming at him on the sideline. So I'm kind of loath to kind of like, I think
it depends how he took it.
I'm kind of loath to have a crack at him for what he does or doesn't do, because I think we focus too much on the finer details and think that it has this massive influence. Just let the boy go on his job.
Yeah, and to call him like we need more passion for him. He was passionate when we scored the goal, but he's been booked a couple of times this season. So got booked yesterday, didn't he? Yeah. And he's been booked before, and he's definitely been in Caldwell said to help me sit down, and he'll argue with the fourth official as well. So instead, he's definitely passionate by arguing with referees and linesmen and that.
Aye. Good.
Anyway.
So he should be. Right.
RT. Really good signs from the team second half. Positive to see McGinn back and Henderson's best game in a Hibs jersey. Agree with that. JK 1976. Better team or not, we still lost. It's not good enough. Manny Curfey. Maloney's been an unmitigated disaster. Can't score, don't create. Some are excited with produced effort. Should that not be a given? The club has a loser mentality. The Black Dog. Take a fighting defeat in a final rather than another final capitulation, which might just prove Manny Curfey's point. with that. Kev R, resilient performance from 10 men, great spirit and attitude. Cammy played well, did dominate for the most part, but regardless, the result is what matters in a semi-final. Same issues with getting bodies forward. Aaron Snedden showed a lot of fighting desire, lacked quality and desire to attack the box. And the last couple, Jeff Ashton proved we can battle, but why not do that in every game? Why wasn't Taylor Moore sent off? 2 subs at the end were baffling. Kevin Hall, the last one for this section. Players left it all on the pitch. Stevenson outstanding. Newell let us down. Better than them with 10 men. Failure to bring in a centre forward in January has done us. There's a lot there about lacking quality, which we know. We knew there's nothing you could do about that yesterday. That's just where we are, because Nisbet's out and Doidge isn't fit again, I think, the looks of things. Can't argue about the spirit. What about the loser mentality thing?
I think Kenny Murphy or Manny Curfew is his Twitter handle. I think his point, right? So there's probably bits of that. So I think the first sense was Maloney's been an unmitigated disaster, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it's difficult to really form a good argument against that point of view, because we've not hit any of the targets that, well, semi-final was a minimum, so he has hit that target in terms of getting there. Back-to-back defeats in derbies, one of them in our biggest match of the season, which was yesterday, and actually even more significant because they now have like a £4 or £5 million windfall on the back of that result that we could have stopped them getting. So the potential for that gap between them and us to get bigger is massive. We're bottom 6, so we're going to have another financial impact to that. Our season starts early because we've got these fucking whatever it's a League Cup, because we have to go into that at the first stage of it. There is still a threat of relegation, right? I don't think it will happen, but it's still there. Like, we're not arithmetically safe yet. So, and we don't look like a team that scores a lot of goals. In fact, we don't score a lot of goals because the stats and the facts back that up. We're not great at keeping clean sheets, which we were for a wee bit under Maloney, but then that's kind of fallen by the wee side again. So the stats back that up. So how do you make an argument that he is not an unmitigated disaster?
Yeah. What's the difference between an unmitigated disaster and a disaster?
Disaster is... Aye. Matty, you take this.
Well, actually, it's a really good question, because if you were putting mitigation into it, right, which I suppose you have to, because there is mitigation for the disaster that we're seeing, and the biggest mitigation is the injury list, right? Which we've spoken about before. There's none of us have experienced a season where we've had the injuries that we've had this season to the extent. I mean, Patrick McPartland put an article out even using it. I think cumulatively it was something like 220 odd games that have been missed by key players, like first team players this season. And that's massive. You look at, and even you look at the impact on recruitment, right? So say you look at, we should have signed a striker in January. Now, so we brought in Melkerson. At that point, you've got Doidge returning for injury and Kevin Nisbet fit. So our two main strikers, right? And Maloney's wanting to play with one of them. So he talked about Nisbet being his main number 9. So at that point, he's got Nisbet is his main number 9, Doidge to come in as a second striker, and then Melkerson coming in to top that up, who he can bleed in over time, because he said, he wasn't ready to start, which we've seen. I think most of us would agree with. So you're looking at 3 strikers for one position there, and then he's actually ended up in reality having one. In fact, he's got James Scott as well for that position. So four players for that position. And he's ended up with one of them as a realistic option, and James Scott is like that realistic option isn't working out. So now we're going to the plan D. So that's unfortunate. Having Kyle McGuinness about to return so he's back kicking the ball, he's back in training. We let Dylan Tate go to Kilmarnock, Melkerson go, Gogic go, and McGuinness picks up another injury that rules him out for the season.
I think Dylan Tate also, did he not get injured on Kilmarnock? So the injury crisis, whatever it is, the hoodoo at Easter Road at East Mains is spread.
Well, you mentioned
like
hoodoo.
COVID.
Right, I bet you there's some Hearts bastards are sitting with a voodoo doll, fucking well chuffed to themselves for how the season's gone.
So it's just a disaster, because it is.
So it's just a disaster rather than unmitigated, because there absolutely is mitigation there, and I suppose the squad that he inherited definitely had gaps in it in terms of centre halves and strikers, and that we're still midfielder short.
Yeah. Which was our choice, like we've spoken about. Midfield, we'll let two of them go. So there's the last section is just really, well, there's a few of them, but they're very short, so just miscellaneous stuff. Andrew Brown playing out for the back cost us. McGlashan, their theatrics were embarrassing, which we kind of touched on. Stephen Scott, failure. Ray Forsyth, this is a season I won't remember. Hibby Nodrog, over and done with, was never too confident we could win. It's the next few games we need to worry about. Michael Moore, Maloney, I or no. Chelsea McCormack, John Beaton is an absolute guffy. I put that in because I thought, guffy, I've not heard that for years.
Great expression, yes, and wholeheartedly agree.
Can that be the name of the episode? Could it just be Guffy?
Guffy.
Beaton is a guffy.
Fattest Bricker says he met Colin after the game. He was starstruck as fuck, as was I. When I saw him, our eyes met across the car park. The Black Dog, Maloney's not the answer. TG Willis, here's an interesting one. So somebody already touched on this, but if Porteous had pushed Moore, it's a definite red. So somebody else is saying Moore could have been sent off. So
absolutely scandalous that he wasn't sent off, by the way, late in the game or no. It was a fucking disgrace. He's not picked up a second yellow.
Yeah. I've got one for Greg Luganis, who says Craig Gordon made an outstanding save that swung the game. Is it only during football games that he cheats?
Well, if you're Mrs. Gordon and you're listening, text into 80295, or if you are somebody who has had relationships with Mr. Gordon outside of his marriage, text into 80295 and let us know, and we'll answer that one. I wouldn't trust them at a game of Scrabble either.
I think at 5 to 10 at night, when it's his turn to take the dugout for its final pish or shite of the night, like maybe just runs into the missus and falls over and goes, "Oh no, I can't do it."
Aye,
because that's what he fucking did to Melkerson. He ran up
forward. Aye,
Melkerson had stopped his run, and Craig Gordon come running out and ran over him, and somehow bought the free kick.
It's funny you say that, right? Because there's a Craigie G message then saying, "Does anyone know what medication you should use for an inner ear infection? I keep falling over for no reason." I think it's penicillin I've had in the past.
Yeah, penicillin will sort you out.
Definitely speak to your doctor.
Jam a cotton bud right in your lug. That'll stop it right out.
Yeah.
One in your lug and one up the nose. And you wiggle like
that. Last one in this section. Does anyone know if you can still get into the Rangers Club if you've forgotten your card? Can I sign my mate Bobby in? That's from a J. Beaton Esquire.
I don't know, I think if your face is known there, you might be alright. I don't know.
If in doubt, just go for the funny handshake.
But I think that's it from them. That we've got a big section which we're going to cover in the extra time about the recruitment or the rebuild or Ian Gordon actually is the kind of categories we've got in there. So we'll cover that in the extra time.
We'll go on to that in just a minute. So I suppose just to wrap up, we've got Sam Delaney joining us on Thursday for Short Bangers. So if you are, and we would recommend listening to his two podcasts in particular that are worth your attention. One of them is called The Reset, which talks about mental health, and then the other one is Top Flight Time Machine, which is really fucking funny.
Hilarious. Recommend going, if you're going to have it, just pop in at that. Go to the Roy Keane Odyssey.
Yeah.
To start with, or the Melchester stuff's good.
Yep.
But there's where I would start.
He's joining us for Short Bangers, so get your questions in for that. And if you're a fan of either of those podcasts, feel free to kind of go and chuck a few questions our way as well. So that'll come out on Thursday night for subscribers, Friday for non-subscribers, and then we'll be back probably with Quick Bang on Saturday. I think we're going to have Heat Bangers tomorrow night, which will be Monday. As well, depending on when you listen to this. Monday might be yesterday, depending on when you listen. Maybe a couple of days ago.
Maybe today.
We'll get to this. Aye. Who knows? Thanks very much for listening. If you are a subscriber, we'll also have Longbangers Extra Time, where we talk about recruitment and probably look ahead to what we need for next season. That'll be landing in your inbox shortly as well. Until next time, we'll catch you later.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink water no